India's new ambassador to the United States is weighing in on the possibility of the U.S. removing troops from Afghanistan. Earlier, Michael Holmes and I spoke with the ambassador, Harsh Vardhan Shringla, about that and other issues India is facing.
The United States has been in touch with us. Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad was in India. He's met some of our leadership. He's discussed these issues. We've had a 2+2 intersessional meeting. There were representatives of the State Department who were there. We've had talks with them. We have outlined very clearly that whatever happens in Afghanistan should take into account the wishes and aspirations of the Afghan people. It should be Afghan-owned and Afghan-led. At the same time, there has to be sustainable and durable peace. So it has to be something that is that ensures that the interests of all concerned, the United States, India, but the entire global security is assured, because you don't want to go back to a situation prior to 9/11. And we have concerns as much as you do in that regard.
Mr. Ambassador, there's no easy segue to this, but I do have to ask you about the rape crisis in India. We've been reporting on some, horrific cases, even after the 2012 gang rape and murder in 2012 in New Delhi. There have been changes in terms of punishment for sexual assault. There's more awareness, but obviously much more needs to be done. Do you agree? And how should this crisis be addressed?
Well, certainly instances of violence against women, rape, are those which are reprehensible and should be condemned, and every state should do whatever it can to prevent such instances from taking place. In the Indian context, you have to see it in perspective. If you see in the total number of rape cases, in statistics released by the UN, you had 113,000 cases in the United States, and you had 38,000 cases in India. In per capita terms, out of every 100,000 people, you had 38.54 cases in the United States, and you had 2.63 cases in India. So if you look at the entire population, and we have a large population, the number of cases are not that many. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have any cases. I mean, we should have any cases at all. We are fully cognizant of the fact that that this is an issue that has to be dealt with. One of the reasons why this is coming up on your radar screen is that there's much greater awareness in India. You have civil society groups that are speaking out. You have women's groups that are speaking out. You have parliament that is very active on that. You have the media that's active. So there's much more consciousness. There's much more information in the system. News channels like yours, social media. So there is a strong public system.
But how do you get to the root of the problem? A lot of analysts have said you've got to change the culture. A lot of the divisions have to do with, the caste system and religious divisions. How do you get to the root of the problem?
Well, as you know, the caste system is not legally recognized. We obviously don't believe that there is any stratification in our society. We do understand that we have to deal with these issues in many senses. It's first and foremost a law and order issue, so we have to have tighter law and order controls. Secondly, we have to ensure that it's a societal issue. There's greater awareness in society. Education has to be fostered towards greater gender equality. We have to do more in working with women's groups. We have to be more... the Prime Minister has a program called Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, which basically focuses on the education of the girl child. If you can send your girls to school, you have a much greater involvement of women in the workforce, much greater awareness. They are much more independent. And I think these are very important steps in trying to ensure that your women are an equal part of society. They are protected.
And a lot of it's on enforcement as well, which India has been cracking down on the issue of bonded labour, which a lot of people say, just call slavery. It's a slavery form. Children working in brick kiln conditions, for hours and hours a day, indebted to the employer. They never get out of it. India has done a lot about it, but the complaints by human rights groups are that it's not being enforced. Not enough is being done. This is still going on, and I imagine you're outraged by images like these of kids working in these conditions. Is that something the government is going to put a stop to?
Well, if you look at it, 10 years ago, there was a lot of focus on child labor. Today, the incidence of child labor is far, far less, to the extent that you rarely hear about it. And that's because of much greater enforcement. Children used to be used in the textile industry, in the carpet industry. You just don't have that anymore. you have much greater controls, not just by the law and order authorities, but also by those who are buying these products.
But the bonded
those who are
labour
involved.
issue in particular, which is, these brick kilns in particular are a focus of that. A lot of complaints that not enough is being done, that, moves are being made and words are being spoken, but it's not being enforced enough.
I think enforcement is increasingly much more stringent. If you look at the news article today, I think it was in CNN itself, it came up in the news because the brick kiln was raided. They were enforcement officials who went across and discovered this and took action that was necessary. And that prompted an outrage. So we are happy that there's more consciousness, that there is more awareness of this. People are speaking out. Indians have to speak out. People within those societies have to speak out, and that's happening. And that's all part of the consciousness that we promote, and you're an important part of that. And we appreciate your bringing this to attention. But I can assure you that it's happening. Even as we speak, there's a social revolution in India, which is part of the government's agenda, but also part coming from within the people themselves.